Do any of you three have concerns with the offensive line recruiting after this season, since DeJuan Jones and possibly Paris Johnson will be gone with no real depth at offensive tackle?
Well, the Ohio State made a change at offensive line coach, and I don't necessarily think that you could sit there and say that the offensive line was playing poorly under Studrawa, but I think you could certainly say that the offensive line recruiting was inconsistent. They're going to need some guys that have been in the background step up, and they're going to need to go out and they're going to need to recruit better at the position. I mean, we're just going to call it what it is. The recruiting has not been consistent. There have been too many misses. There have been too many players that Ohio State was a prohibitive favorite for, only to be caught, passed, and discarded. And they just can't have that anymore. Justin Fry comes in, has got a good reputation as a recruiter as well as a position coach. And I think that there's not a position on a college football staff like offensive line where for the most part, you're either a killer recruiter and an okay position coach, or the opposite. Or the third option is you're just not good at either. I don't know. The ones that are good at both are unicorns. And I think Ohio State may have a unicorn, but I'm going to reserve my final statement on that until I see a class or two out of them. So concerns, always. But I think you're always concerned about recruiting every position every year, because the second you take your eye off the prize, it's the second that everything goes to hell. So I think you're concerned, but I think there's reason to feel good.
Yeah, I think the issue on the offensive line is you've got next year, if they do lose Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones, you've got a bunch of right tackles and guards. And so you've got to find something that works. Now, I thought it was interesting, Kevin Wilson, first day of spring, talking about possibilities at left tackle. If Paris Johnson can't do it, he mentioned Donovan Jackson. So that's a guy to watch maybe next year to step into that. He'll be starting at right guard this year, and then maybe just do what Paris Johnson did and move to left tackle. And, he's only 6'4", but he's mobile as heck. And really, Ohio State, Jamarco Jones was 6'4", and he did just fine. Height at left tackle, I think, is a little bit overblown in today's wide open offenses. So there's there's some hope there, in my opinion. And Josh Fryer, maybe as that right tackle next year, I think he'll be one to watch. Even he can play anywhere. Enoch Famah, he can play anywhere. But you need these young guys like a Zen Mahalski to step up next year. Actually, you need them to step up this year and show that there are people waiting in the wings, and that you're not terrified of what is to come. But then there is also the transfer portal. If there's anybody out there, which is the real question, is there anybody out there at the time you need them? They were fortunate Justin Fields was out there, and they didn't end up with somebody like Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, you can always find a Jonah Jackson type out there. They've done it once; they could do it again.
Yeah, if it ever came to it where they were really deficient on the offensive line, they would go into the transfer portal and, I think, snap their fingers and have somebody who's played somewhere that doesn't play winning football but is a quality football player that they could plug in there for a year if they had to. I think it is important for Justin Fry to pick up the ball and recruit very well on the offensive line, and to start getting some blue chippers back in the fold there. The depth on the offensive line is not necessarily blue chip in stature. You've got a lot of good program players in there, a whole list of them, a laundry list of them in there. You're up to, I think, close to 13 or 14 scholarship offensive linemen, maybe even 15, but only 5 or 6 guys who you'd say are, creme de la creme, blue chip type guys. So, a lot of program guys, development guys, and Fry's going to have his hands full trying to squeeze the quality Big Ten championship football out of those lesser guys. But that may be his task over the next couple of years.
I think it's going to be interesting to watch how the NIL collectives at respective schools start recruiting out of the transfer portal or before the transfer portal. If Ohio State, the collective, knows, we need a right tackle next year, and there's a guy at Indiana or Boise State who is an All-American, there's nothing that says that collective can't give money to that player. You know, they can give money to whoever they want. And so this would be a way coaches can't go and recruit players from other teams. I don't think there's anything that says NIL collectives can't. And so this would be a way to, hey, you know, why don't you come to the transfer portal? And you know, Ohio State, we've got great connections here. This is what we can do for you. Plus, there's a job waiting to be won, and you're the perfect guy for it. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And you know, it probably already happens in basketball with AAU and stuff like that, where you see guys transferring from smaller schools to bigger schools. I think you could see some just almost lateral moves coming up with the collectives and the reach they could have.